correctly? Okay, fantastic. And let's just go into the next slide. Okay, so welcome everyone again. So welcome again. It's really, really nice to have you here today for what I think, will be a meaningful conversation. So like I said, get your fingers on the buzzers because we're going to be doing lots of communications through the chat, and take any questions or thoughts as you have them as we go through. So today we're going to be naming something that quietly shapes how so many of us lead, how we work, and how we measure ourselves. And that's the tension between faith and success. So we've been told that in order to succeed, we've got to hustle harder. So we've got to chase that productivity, we've got to be more visible, and then we've got to grow. We've got to have year on year, month on month growth. But here's the truth of it all. Hustle isn't the same as holiness. So I just want you to hold that thought in our mind. That's okay. I'll wait for you. That's not a problem. Okay. So I just want you to hold that thought in your mind that hustle isn't the same thing as holiness, because external success can actually hide internal emptiness. You can look like you're winning on paper, but still feel kind of weary in your spirit. And it's kind of being kind of attuned to what's going on inside that actually helps us to understand where we are and to make those changes. So when our pursuit of success pulls us out of alignment with God's pace, we can trade peace for performance. And by the end of today's session, though, my hope for you that is that you'll walk away with a deeper understanding of why the hustle culture distorts how we see success. And I'd like to leave you with some scriptural insight into how God defines prosperity and purpose, and that you'll take away some practical steps that will help you to lead with peace, lead with purpose, and to have more impact, but without the pressure. And most importantly, with a kind of renewed vision for what faith aligned success truly looks like. Because what I want you to know is you don't have to choose between faith and success. You just might need to redefine both. Okay, so if that kind of makes sense, don't forget, you might be slow on the keyboards, but you can do those emojis, so thumbs up, smiles, or whatever, that I know that we're on the right track. But okay, so that's what I want you to kind of know. But before we get into all of that, just our mission is to create a space where leaders can align their faith, their values, and their calling so that their influence can reflect both excellence and integrity, because I just think that's really important. We believe that true leadership impact flows from spiritual alignment, not from endless striving. And it's through this alignment that we help other leaders to increase their impact, but to do that authentically and to achieve business success with integrity across whatever sphere of influence they may operate from. So that's kind of what we're about. Okay, so today then, this is what we're going to explore together. So number one, we're going to be looking at the myth of the hustle. So why busyness is often mistaken for purpose. That whole thing about, gosh, if I'm really, really busy, then I must be on purpose. Well, is that true or not? And then we're going to look at the hidden cost. So what striving does to your spirit and your leadership, because often we don't take the time out to think about those things. I'm going to be kind of sharing a bit of kingdom perspective. So what scripture says about prosperity, real prosperity, and then leave you with some tools for faith aligned success. So just some very simple practices that will help you to restore that peace, that focus. And then finally, a bit of reflection, a story, and a call to action. So how can you apply what we're talking about? How can you apply that personally? So I hope that's okay for you. Is that okay? Okay, excellent. Great stuff. Okay, nodding's good too. Okay, nodding's good too. Okay, so for those of you who've attended a weekly moment before, a weekly session before, you know that I like to share kind of research and statistics to help give some context for our discussions. So let's start with what's really happening around us. So according to the Harvard Business Review of 2024, over 75% of leaders say that they feel that pressure to constantly achieve more, even when they're already at capacity. So even when they're already at capacity, they're like, mate, I just feel like I need to achieve more. So I don't know that. I mean, I can kind of get into that sometimes. So, I can really kind of emphasize with what that point. But yeah, even if you're at capacity, it's like, oh my goodness, I need to do more. Also, the World Economic Forum in 2023 found like 67% of professionals link their identity directly to their work performance. So this is what I do, but I link my identity to how I achieve. Now, I don't know if you go out to kind of networking events, but I think it becomes really apparent in those kind of activities when the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, what have I done lately? Do you know what I mean? It's almost like I'm trying to show the world that how great I am, as opposed to who I am as a person. But I don't know about that's my take on sometimes some of that networking activity. But also the Barna Group 2023 reports that 40% of Christian leaders feel conflicted between pursuing excellence and maintaining spiritual peace. So that there's a real tension of how do I do that at the same time. So much of what we call success today, if we think about it, is built on constant comparison. There's that need to compare numbers, metrics, influence, outcomes. So that's what tends to take our attention. But if your peace, what you feel like inside, if that depends on your productivity, then something's off. Okay, so if your peace depends on your productivity, then maybe something's off. Because the truth is, you can be outwardly successful and inwardly empty. So the two of them don't necessarily match up. Does that make sense? Yeah, fantastic. Cool. Okay, so let's unpack the myth a little bit. So I don't know about you, so give me some thumbs up emojis if this is you. Okay, cool. Okay, so we've been taught that hustle equals holiness. Okay, hustle equals holiness, and that working harder somehow proves our worth. So that's what the kind of world tells us. That's what we buy into. But the gospel says the opposite. It actually says that our worth was already proven at the cross. So I know I just got a bit biblical for a moment, but I just think that's important as a believer is to think about things a little bit differently. So while hustle whispers, if you just do more, you'll finally arrive, Jesus invites us to abide in him, not strive. So in John 15, 5, he says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So all of our striving without him can lead to not a lot. And even if you're having great results with that striving, imagine what you could have if he was part of the equation. So that's kind of what I want to think about. Because notice fruitfulness comes from connection, according to this, not exhaustion. You see, when the world celebrates speed, heaven values steadfastness. And when the world says work harder, heaven says walk with me. So there's a difference just in pace, but you can still achieve. So that's something to think about. But let's go a bit further. So any thoughts? I can wait for a bit and just go back. So any thoughts you've got, I can wait for you to type. You can just type those in. Any thoughts about that, you can let me know, but I'll be looking at the chat and picking up whatever you say and bringing it in. So I don't know if you've got thoughts on, is that true? I don't believe it. Maybe, how do you get all that? You might have some ideas about that. So, there's a difference between how the world kind of suggests we do and what the word kind of tells us. Okay. So let's just think about what happens when we actually lead from that hustle rather than holiness. Okay, fantastic. This is what I needed to hear today. This is good. We'll definitely have a conversation. Okay, so this is what happens when we lead from that hustle and not from holiness. So a number of things can happen, but one of them is that we can confuse movement with progress. So lots and lots of activity, moving our targets forward, we can see that as progress. We confuse those two bits, okay, movement with progress. We start performing, so it's about achievement, it's about looking good, it's about making sure everybody else sees me as doing good instead of just leading. that leading and interacting, being with people, supporting people, being that person, being that role model, performing instead of leading. We can become driven by outcomes instead of that quiet obedience. And then slowly, when all of that keeps taking a hold of us, slowly our peace erodes. We say yes to more, but we connect less. And we start to achieve, but we're actually achieving without the alignment that for us as believers is so important. So we do more, but something is missing. Now, a 2023 Deloitte study showed that leaders who tied their identity solely to their results are 4 times more likely to experience burnout than those who prioritize purpose alignment. So there is a way or a need of doing both, of bringing alignment into our results and giving us that internal peace. But without it, studies have shown that we're more likely to burn out. And here's the line. I think this line hits home. You can hit every goal and still miss God in the process. So it's one thing I talk about a lot is this kind of whole compartmentalization, whereby people of faith, we kind of maybe do our faith wholeheartedly at the weekends, and then we kind of almost forget it when we go into go to work Monday to Friday. But you can still hit, you can hit every goal and still miss God in the process. Because real success isn't about optics, it's about obedience. It's not about how it looks on the outside, but it's actually how aligned it is with what God has asked you to do. And I just want to take a bit of a pause just to think of this, because I think when we do that compartmentalization, it's kind of like, in my faith life, wherever I kind of go to worship, or that part of my life, it's I can see how I can show up there. And then my work life, it's actually, I see that as something different. But actually, have we thought that maybe your work life is where God has assigned you and that's where he wants you to show up, but he wants him to be part of that mix. So it's not separate, it's what would it look like if it was together. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay, we can definitely talk about. So there are definite ways to work out, what God has asked me to do. Definitely. I mean, just in terms of who you are as a person and standing up as a leader, is that what kind of leader are you expected to be? What kind of leader would Jesus want you to be? So how do you show it for your people? How are you that servant leader? Do you put people and their needs first? There's a way to balance people's needs with business. There are lots of different ways that you can, number one, just be the leader that he would want you to be. Then there are other ways of actually looking at, what it is, what are the things that I can make a difference through my business, through the different types of people. So, so there might be people that you service within your business. That could be your calling. What else could you do? How else could you do that to serve those people better? Are there different communities that you could serve with with your business, with your products that you may not have thought about it? Are there different ways that you can orientate yourself that would allow more people to benefit? So there are different ways that you could use what you're already doing and see that as a call from the Lord to do something different. But we can talk about those things, and there are other ways to find those things out. But that's a massive, big question, because oftentimes we separate when actually God's asking us to consolidate. Yeah, so that's fantastic. I love that. Okay, and there's more, just in case you didn't want to do this bit. Okay, so let's just take a little bit deeper and let's look at a kingdom view of success, and that might shine a bit of a light on that. So scripture gives us a radically different definition of success. In Joshua 1:8, God says, "Now keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night so that you may be careful to do everything that's written in it. And then you'll be prosperous and successful." So it's where our motivation comes from. It's how do we allow the word of God to live out in what we do. So this is not about being a Bible basher. I say that often. Ethical leadership is not about trying to make everybody to become Christian. It's not about that. It's about how you show up and how you help others to be the best that they can be by you being the best that you can be, so that you show God's love through the way that you lead. So it's not about Bible bashing, it's about how you show up. And I think that's a really important thing. And when we can look at things that way, we can start to get a sense of, well, why has God placed you where he's placed you, or why the opportunities that are in your lap, the ones that are right for you. Does that make sense? Yeah, fantastic. And any other thoughts, please? Any more questions, drop them in there. Definitely. Fantastic. Well done. Okay, so in God's economy, success begins with obedience and alignment. So it doesn't start with how much you produce, it starts with how aligned you are. It's not about platform or productivity, it's about obedience and your purpose. And really looking at purpose and looking at purpose through a wider lens to see how else God could be leading you. And Proverbs 16:3 echoes this. It says, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. So I always think that even if, say, we were taking a wrong path, and if we didn't really know what God was asking us to do, but we still, with our relationship with him, commit whatever we're doing to him, he finds a way to redirect us or to instruct us or to open doors that lead us in one direction or close the ones that would have us lead in a different direction. Does that make sense? So it's just open ourselves up and allowing him to show up. That can be part of the learning about what he's asking us to do. And there's more stuff we can talk about that. But I guess the main thing here then is if the hustle is about control, how do I make these things happen? What effort do I have to put in? If I do X, I get Y. If it's about that, then faith-driven success is about trust. It's okay. How do I show up? What does God want from me? How do I need to operate in this part? Lord, what do you want? It's being open ourselves up to that. So if hustle is about control, faith-driven success is about trust. And what I'd say is you don't need to chase recognition. You're just called to rest in obedience. I mean, sometimes, again, in our world, that can be quite hard. When everybody else is getting awards and, their businesses are up in lights and all of that, it's like, well, I want some of that too. But actually, if we go inwards for a moment and we just be aligned and allow the Lord to, exalt us when we need to be exalted and just wait on his timing for stuff, we will be rewarded. We do good things, it will get noticed. But that recognition may come in people telling you how amazing you are to them, or people sharing with you that you've made a big difference. It may be different than big awards and recognition in the press, if that makes sense. Yeah. But we will be exalted. We do the right things. Any other questions? Just feel free. Okay. So, what are some tools, or how do we live this stuff out practically in terms of real leadership, business, and life? Really? Okay, so they're all great, but how can we do this? So here's three very, very simple practices that I share with clients and with people in my community. And it goes a bit like this. Number one is alignment, not agenda. So before opening your laptop or kind of getting out, unfolding that very big, long to-do list, just pause and ask, Lord, what matters most to you today? So in the session we did last week, we talked about that moment when you first wake up, whatever your devotion life is like, where you can just pause, give thanks, but just kind of say, Lord, what do you want me to do today? And just see what comes in that moment. You see, that question alone can reset your entire day and take out the strive and introduce some peace. Then number two, lead from rest, not rush. Okay, so that's another internal barometer. How am I behaving in my day? Is it about, oh my goodness, I've got to do? Is it that kind of energy and activity? Or is it like, well, okay, now what? So build those sacred pauses. Fantastic. Build some sacred pauses into your workday. So even 2 to 3 minutes of stillness just to breathe or to pray, or just take some time out just to go, okay, now what? See, rest is not rebellion. It's not about, oh my goodness, I'm on the clock and me taking it 5 minutes out, I now owe them. It's not about that. Rest is an opportunity for revelation. When you stop, perspective happens, and it's like, okay, now let me do it this way. And then the third one would be measure obedience, not optics. And I'm not saying that it's not important that you have to, achieve, or you need to achieve your business results, and people are looking at you for that. And you're also leading other people in your organization to make sure they achieve. I'm not saying that. But I'm asking you to, as a leader, I'm asking you to ask yourself, am I being faithful with what's in front of me? So how am I going about achieving? How am I doing what I'm doing? How am I going about, making those milestones happen? How am I speaking with people who are doing the work? So am I being faithful with what's in front of me? You see, faithfulness in the small things actually does prepare us for the significant. And scripture tells us that as well, and I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, what is considered small is very different for each of us. So, what I would think was small, you probably might think it was huge, or the other way around. You think something's small, I go, oh my gosh, that's huge, okay? Because those who are entrusted with more will be held to a higher standard and asked to do more. It's all relative. Yeah. Remember that with Christ at your side, you have the ability. I love this one. I should have had like a Superman, but you have the ability to become a leadership superpower. You actually do. You can make a huge, massive difference. But as the line in one of the films say, and if you know the film, put it in the chat, but with great power comes great responsibility. Okay, I can't remember which one it is, but if you know what that one is, then please let me know so I know for later. But I just know there's a superhero film. With great power comes great responsibility. Oh, you're thinking now, aren't you? So, but anyway, but just know you can become, with Christ at your side, you have the ability to become a leadership superpower. And I think with more leaders being like that, that's the difference that we make in business. That's the difference we make in the world. And you will feel aligned in that way too. So I think that's important. Okay. Just gonna see if there's anything else you're putting in. If not, I'll move on to the next point. I'm glad that the pointers are important. Oh, Ghostbusters. Oh, is it Ghostbusters? I thought it was like Superman, or it's not Batman. I thought it was like Superman, or not Mission Impossible. I thought it was Superman or one of the Marvel characters. But anyway, we'll go with Ghostbusters. But I think it's a Marvel one. Superhero. Anyway, yeah. But anyway, we'll move on. Okay. Okay. So so let's just take a moment. Okay. Okay. So let's just take a moment just to pause and reflect together. So I'm just asking you just to think about, again, just the last 2 weeks. So the last 2 weeks, just think back over the last 2 weeks. Where have you been tempted to hustle instead of trust? Where has that pull been? Just, oh, let me just get on with it and do it my way, as opposed to let me just stop and trust. So over the last 2 weeks, where have you been tempted to hustle instead of trust? And by hustle, I don't mean, working hard, because we all need to work hard. I mean that subtle pressure to prove yourself, to perform, to push through, even when God may be asking you to pause. I think so once I've got this big thing on my throat, it's because I'm not feeling very well at the moment. And so I was kind of thinking like, oh gosh, I hope my voice doesn't give out before my session. But it's like, sometimes we get ill because that's God's way of making us pause and take stock. Okay, I'm hoping that's not the case here. But so the question is, that subtle pressure to prove yourself, to perform, to push through, even when God's asking you to pause. What has that been like for you in the last couple of weeks? So maybe you've been working hard, going after more contracts, trying to serve that contract, but feeling disconnected. Maybe success feels busy, but not blessed. So busy, 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 can't take time out, just not even able to see friends or whatever it is. Just maybe busy, but not feeling blessed. So just type, a word or a couple of sentences or whatever in the chat that captures what you most want to realign this week. Yeah, and that is a very, very, very big pressure, in terms of needing to make enough money to pay the bills. Definitely, I completely get that. And but at the same time, that pressure is there. But at the same time, what's one word that captures what you most want to align this week? So if there's a way to make the money, is it about the pace at which you're doing that? Is it about, the peace that you're not experiencing that you'd like to experience? Or is it about a connection to your purpose? What's the real reason you're doing what you're doing? So where do you most want to be realigned this week? Your pace, your peace, or your purpose? That can then help you to combat the pressure but still have the success. What do you reckon? Pace, peace, purpose, or something else? Or something else? So let me know. What's word that captures one word that captures what you most want to realign in yourself this week. Now, I don't know if you're a journaling person. So when I kind of work with leaders, I often encourage them to have their own kind of A4, A5 at least, but A4 book and to journal experiences as they go through. Okay, so purpose feels like the key. Okay, absolutely. So it's so what are some things that you can do maybe this week? And maybe we can have a word afterwards, but what we can do that actually helps you to kind of realign with that purpose. And that can then illuminate everything else that's kind of going on. But like I was saying, one of the things I talk to leaders about, and I don't know if this would help you, is to write things down. So if you're right, the fact that you've actually put, gosh, I'm going to get realigned with my purpose, just writing that down and having that before the Lord, because what you name in God's presence, He can transform. So it's another act of faith of kind of saying, Lord, this is the thing that I need some help with. It's that act of surrender that allows Him to kind of go, I've got you. Okay, these are some things. This is what I'm going to lead you to do. And so that's what I find journaling really does, is it allows your thoughts to become open, and it's almost like an active communication. And then you can also write down the response or your thoughts, your feelings, your direction that come to you as a result of making that, of naming the thing. So journaling, I think, is a really interesting and useful practice, but again, we can talk about that. Okay, so before we move on, anything else that you want to add about that? Good tip. Okay, no, seriously. I remember the first time I did that, when I was thinking, oh my goodness, these thoughts are coming to me and I'm not sure where they're coming from. So I actually started to write them down. And what I tend to do is I tend to date and put times against the thoughts that come. So I put time and dates, and then when I look back, and I also journal in if I get responses and whatever, and as I look back, it's almost like you can see the whole journey of the divine through lots of parts of my life, because I have these journals that just capture moments in time. I also do it when I'm under a lot of pressure and I'm like, I've got it in my head so much I just need to explode with it, or so I explode with it on paper, and I'm like, Lord, on paper. And then it's kind of like, and then it's like, a few weeks later or whatever, I start to see things starting to move around. So I just think that's just something to think about. Okay, fantastic. So how does this stuff then play out in real life? Okay, so what are some examples that we can actually help to land the plane today? Okay, so one leader shared that before joining our community, she was hitting all her business goals, but deep down she felt spiritually empty. She said, I realised that I was growing my business but losing my peace in the process. And she described the shift like this: the moment I stopped striving to make everything happen and started inviting God into my decisions, things began to change. My schedule didn't get lighter because, as a CEO or as a business person, you still got lots to do, but my spirit did. My clarity returned, and for the first time, my success actually felt like something sacred. I just thought that was kind of cool. So, and that's what I think, that's the fruit, I think, of alignment. And it's what happens when leaders move from proving to partnering, from striving to surrendering, is that alignment happens. Because when your faith fuels your work, peace becomes your evidence. Yeah, you know it's right because you'll get that sense of peace. And that can help you through lots of difficult business decisions. Yeah. So I don't know, because you're writing there. I don't know if you've got any thoughts you want to add to that. Yeah, so if you've got any thoughts you want to add, then feel free to add them, or emojis or whatever. Okay, then, so I know that that's landed. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so a little bit more then. So, okay, so here's the shift. So how do we shift from hustle to holiness? So here's a shift that I'd like you to remember. I'm going to invite you to remember this one. You don't need to chase things harder, like business, targets, relationships. You just need to walk closer. And that's closer to your sustainer, who is God. Just making that bit extra time, that pause in the day, just to kind of align yourself more with Him, to be open to Him and just see what happens. So that whole thing about working harder, striving, even though you've got the pressure of what you need to achieve. Because if you're doing it your way and it hasn't worked, maybe do it a different way and see what happens. You can always go back to that one, okay? But try, I always say you got a choice. You can always go back to that one, but why not try the other way and see what happens? And if you need help to do that, that's all good. We can always talk about that, but try something different. You see, when your faith fuels your leadership, you actually stop striving for approval and you start leading from abundance. And that doesn't necessarily mean your bank account, but that will happen. But it's about how your spirit and how you go after things. And that could be the defining moment that makes the other things happen. Because hustle says, earn it. But holiness says, you already have it. You already have it. It's just attaching yourself, aligning yourself with that. So a 2024 McKinsey report, just to echo this, found that leaders who intentionally anchor their leadership in spiritual purpose experience 40% higher levels of peace and long-term satisfaction. So if you find a way to align what you do with your faith, 40% higher levels of peace and long-term satisfaction. For me, if I'm going to be in the business that I'm in, and I have the targets that I need to meet, I've got the financial outlays that I need to achieve, I'd rather do that with peace than with not. Yeah? So if I can find a way that gives me more peace while I'm working hard, I'd rather do it that way. And often when you have peace, it's just that thing, a bit like the thing that they say, when you are happy, you learn more. When you're at peace, you probably produce. Does that make sense? Yeah? That makes sense. Cool. So I was going to say, I hope you're kind of getting it. It's not about doing more, but it's about being more aligned. Okay, so we are coming down. I'm trying to think what the time is. Okay, we are coming down now. So as we close, here's a bit of an invitation. Yeah, agreed. Peaceful souls are so attractive. Yeah, and that's the other thing. So even in the hustle, when we're wanting to go after more business and all of that kind of stuff, which is necessary, but if you're at peace, people will tend to be drawn to you. People are drawn to the energy that you portray. I don't know in terms of what your business is, but if I think about, as a coach, as a kind of leadership development person, when I can attract people that attracted to the headspace that I'm in. And sometimes when I haven't been in that really good headspace, the people that I'm attracting are really hard work, okay? Really hard work. But when I'm at peace, it's almost like, that difference that just comes. It's just really amazing. But anyway, so as we close, here's the invitation. Ambition and success are not the enemy. There's no shame in excellence, in achievement or productivity. In fact, God has designed us for purpose, for fruitfulness, and for impact. That's what He's designed us for. But success that isn't surrendered to His will eventually loses meaning. That way of working will drain you of your peace, it will rob you of your joy, and it will leave you feeling empty. That's why I say success isn't failure, but it does need surrender. Because success without surrender may look impressive from the outside, but on the inside it becomes hollow and rarely feels peaceful. And I was just thinking about, and I don't want, yeah, there's a lot of things that, I think about, and I don't want to kind of, say, oh, those people who do the lottery, but you hear lots of stories about people who win millions, who have millions, or who are really successful, but they feel empty inside because something is missing. So I just think that if we can have that peace while we are striving, while we are kind of doing what we need to do, I just think that it's more beneficial. Anyway, so if you're ready to redefine success through faith and alignment, then I'd love to invite you to book a business faith reset session with me. So that's the QR codes on the screen, and there's a link in the chat. It's a free one-to-one space where we kind of explore, how your goals, your calling, and your leadership can align with God's pace, so that your peace and impact can actually grow together. So we can explore all of that. Okay, and I was going to say, and if you're ready to go deeper, then why not join our faith-inspired leadership membership group? So we have a new membership group. So check out, the link and have a look at that. And it's where success feels whole again. It feels aligned, peaceful, and God-led. So that's kind of what our next steps could look like. Okay, so just as we kind of get ready to close down, here are just some key points to remember as we recap. So achievement pressure is universal. Okay, so you're not alone in that. 3 in 4 leaders feel the strain to constantly do more. And this shows that the kind of culture that we're all living and leading in is one that often glorifies that relentless performance over peace. So we can get drawn into just how the world is operating right now, or we can kind of go, no, I want to do it differently. In the world, identity is often tied to output. Many leaders measure their worth by results rather than by purpose. So I think it's really great that what you wanted to realign this week is purpose, because it gives a clear indication that spiritual and emotional alignment are things that are deeply needed. And then finally, there's a growing tension amongst leaders everywhere. So whether that's in faith or in business, many feel caught between pursuing excellence on the one hand and maintaining inner peace on the other, between achievement on one hand and authenticity. How do I do that in a real way? So the constant demand for results often clashes with that deeper desire for peace and purpose, which there reveals there's a universal call, I believe, to redefine success and to realign it with your soul. I think that's really important. So I don't know if you've got any more thoughts on that. Obviously, we're going to pick it up in a one-to-one, but any more thoughts on that? Obviously, I'd like to, hear what stood out most for you, or what tension feels real for you again right now. So feel free to keep sharing your thoughts or questions, and I'll reach out personally after the session. Oh wow, no, definitely. I mean, for me, oftentimes I write these things. Well, let me just finish the recording. I'll come back and answer that one. Okay, because okay, so I just want to kind of say thank you for your time and with me today. Before we close, I just want to leave you with this. Matthew 6:33, and this is a scripture that is so dear to my heart. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So you don't have to trade faith for success. You just need to bring success under God's authority. So again, feel free just to share any chats. And as we close out, I just want to leave you with this. May your leadership this week be marked by peace and not pressure, by presence, not performance, and by purpose, grounded in the Lord's plan for you. Okay, so thank you for being here. So until next time, stay blessed. I'm going to end the recording and then I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, so let me stop that and find the recording.